Hello, everybody. Good morning, all of you. My name is Kumar Anuj, and as always, I welcome you to Chandra classes. In our today's special lecture, the topic of our discussion is Biosphere Reserve. Why this topic is the topic of discussion of our today's lecture? Because this topic was recently very much in news for very good reasons. So that's why we are going to dig deeper into this topic, that is Biosphere Reserve. As we know that Biosphere Reserve, it is already an important topic under the static portion of the general studies, meaning being part of environment and ecology. But since this topic, Biosphere Reserve, was in news recently, last week, it was very much in news for the good reasons. That's why it becomes important for our exam multiple times. So that's why, just without wasting any time or making any delay, just coming to the topic straight away for our systematic, structured discussion so that nothing is left behind. And I request you people to concentrate over the topic, each and every point, each and every sentence and the word, because we are going to have just holistically coverage of this topic so that nothing is left behind as per the relevance of our competitive exams. Because whenever we are discussing any topic, the relevance of the topic for our exam, that is the priority. So that's why, my friends, we are going to unfold this topic in a holistic manner as per the requirement and the relevance of our exams. So first of all, Biosphere Reserve. Okay, why this topic was in news? Because why we chose this topic to discuss in our today's special lecture? Why this topic was in news? First of all, so the question arises, my friends, that why this topic was in news. So let's know the reason. This topic was in news last week because on 27th of September, on 27th of September, September 2025, UNESCO recognized, UNESCO recognized, recognized, recognized India's cold desert biosphere reserve. India's cold desert, cold desert biosphere reserve, cold desert biosphere reserve, as part of MAB, as part of M, as part of WNBR, to be precise, as part of WNBR, WNBR, NBR, meaning World Network of Biosphere Reserve, which is a list of biosphere reserve as recognized by the UNESCO under its MAB program, which was launched in 1971. So this was the reason that this topic, Biosphere Reserve, was in news. We'll discuss about that as well, the current perspective as well, the current perspective of the topic as well, that what is UNESCO, how it recognizes under its program various biosphere reserves of different country as to be the part of WNBR. What is WNBR? What is the MAB program of UNESCO, which was launched in 1971 and under which UNESCO recognizes the sites of different countries, meaning biosphere reserves of different countries, to be the part of UNESCO recognized WNBR. Okay, so biosphere reserve, it was in news. Why in news? Because of this development. Okay, putting this development, the current development, aside for the time being. Now coming over our topic, biosphere reserve, my friends. Biosphere reserve. Okay, so now the question arises. Now next question arises that what is a biosphere reserve? What? What the hell the biosphere reserve is? आखिर ये है क्या? जिस जो ये डेवलपमेंट करेंट हुआ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व को लेके, आखिर ये बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व है क्या? What the biosphere reserve is exactly there? है क्या ये? What the hell is it is, my friend? Just understanding in a very simple language, very precisely. Biosphere Reserve is a notified, it is a notified, or we say declared, notified, declared, declared area, declared area of what? Because whenever we think about biosphere reserve, normally jungles, forests, they pop in inside our mind. हमें लगने लगता है कि कोई फॉरेस्ट या जंगल का एरिया होगा वही बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व होगा, बट दिस इज नॉट नेसेसरीली सो, ऐसा हमेशा नहीं होता है, बिकॉज अ notified or declared area as a biosphere reserve that could be, that could be either a forest ecosystem or desert ecosystem. For example, if you talk about desert ecosystem, we already have a biosphere reserve, that is our Great Run of Kutch Biosphere Reserve. It is containing a desert ecosystem, meaning a salt desert. Salt desert, Run of Kutch Biosphere Reserve. It is one of the biosphere reserves already existing in India. So a notified declared area, and this area, my friends, this area could be a forest area, meaning contain forest ecosystem. It can contain a desert ecosystem, as we discussed Great Run of Kutch Biosphere Reserve, desert ecosystem. If we talk about forest ecosystem, Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve is the example of forest ecosystem primarily. Then after coastal ecosystem, Sundarbans Biosphere Reserve of India, that is one of the examples of coastal ecosystems primarily. And it also could be, it also could be a particular kind of marine ecosystem as well. Marine ecosystem, my friend. As we know, our biosphere reserve, that is Gulf of Mannar Biosphere Reserve, which is located in Gulf of Mannar in Indian Ocean, below Tamil Nadu, that part below, meaning not exactly below, but towards the southeastern side of Tamil Nadu. That biosphere reserve, Gulf of Mannar Biosphere Reserve, is a marine biosphere reserve. So this area could be either forest or desert or marine or coastal, or the combo of more than one area, combination of more than one area. So it is a declared, a notified declared area, okay, declared by the government of the country, in which a biosphere reserve is going to be declared. For example, in India, it is declared by the government of India, meaning central government. We'll discuss about that later in our later discussion. Okay, so this biosphere reserve, okay, this is a notified declared area by the government of the country, my friends. Now, where area, where, I mean, we cannot declare just any area to be a biosphere reserve, where the local, I mean the nature and the local community live together in harmony, where local community, meaning locals, and the nature, nature, meaning this is, if being asked that what is a biosphere reserve, a biosphere reserve is a notified or declared area where local communities and the nature means plants, animals, etc., they live together in harmony, meaning not harming each other. They are living in harmony sustainably. So this is about what is biosphere reserve. Now the next development, obvious question in mind that arises, that how a biosphere reserve is managed, okay, the obvious question. Now when we talk about the management of the biosphere reserve, we talk about the structure of the biosphere reserve. First of all, structure I request you all don't miss even a single point, because our discussion today is going to be point to point, very important, significant for our exam. So if we talk about the structure of a biosphere reserve, it has three-layered structure. The innermost area, the central region of the biosphere reserve, is known as core area. Core area. Then after surrounding area, surrounding to the core, is known as buffer zone. Then after we see the surrounding area to the buffer zone, it is known as transition area. Core area meaning central area, meaning central to the protection of the nature. This area is the core, the central to the protection of the nature. Meaning, if we talk about the core area, first of all, core area. This core area may include other designations like national parks, wildlife sanctuaries. There could be there in the core area. So this can include other designations like national parks, wildlife sanctuaries. They are declared by the state under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Those areas, meaning those designated areas, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. I'm not talking about biosphere reserve at all. I mean, biosphere reserve is not declared under Wildlife Protection Act, remember. So this core area, if talking about this core area, this is highly protected. This is so much protected that almost no any human interference is allowed in this area, except some research and monitoring, because we need to have some monitoring that if there is any difficulty in the development of the nature in this area or not, and research purposes as well. So it is highly protected from any human interference or intervention. Highly protected of all these three reasons. Highly protected. Now this is highly protected because we want to preserve the biodiversity here in the core region in its purest natural form without any interference. तो एकदम प्योर नेचुरली जैसे बायोडाइवर्सिटी वहां पर रह सकती है, मीनिंग प्लांट्स, एनिमल्स एक्सेट्रा टुगेदर, they are existing in their purest natural form. That's why it is given highest priority and protection in all the three layers of the biosphere reserve. Now coming to the next one, the surrounding area, that is buffer zone. If we talk about buffer zone, my friends, then buffer zone primarily it allows research, it allows educational kind of uses of the particular area. Research meaning, when we talk about research, meaning we are doing research in plants, plant research, soil research, various research studies are conducted in soil, plants, animals, etc. So plant studies, soil studies, various studies and researches could be conducted in this buffer zone. And research and ecotourism is also allowed here. You see in many kinds of videos, content in the YouTube, that people are going there in the biosphere reserves and have enjoying the tourism there. So that ecotourism is specifically allowed in this buffer zone. So ecotourism is also allowed. When we talk about tourism, normal tourism does not just involve caring the natural environment to have kind of an emphasis over there. For example, it is understood that whenever we are having tourism, we should care about the environment, the natural environment we are having at our tourist site. But when we add up eco before the tourism, meaning ecotourism, ecological tourism, it means that the thing is being stressed, that whenever thing is being emphasized, that whenever you are visiting the particular place as a tourist, you should have your practices sustainable there, meaning not throwing any garbage, taking care of that, you are not disturbing the ecological structure there. So that's why we call it ecotourism, meaning in sync with the natural environment, not harming the natural environment at all. So that's how we call ecotourism. So these primary activities, they are allowed in the buffer zone. Now, when we talk about the transition zone, when we talk about the transition zone, it it can have settlements of the locals, settlements of the local communities, because a biosphere reserve, the concept of biosphere reserve is not just to preserve and protect the biodiversity. Instead, along with preserving, protecting, conserving the biodiversity, meaning animals, plants, etc., it also focuses over the sustainable development of the local communities living there. So it is kind of a correlation, kind of a symbiotic association between the local communities and the biodiversity. So that's why, and that's how we see that a biosphere reserve differs from other designations like national park and wildlife sanctuary, because they are primarily for the protection, conservation of biodiversity, natural resources. But here we see we are also taking care of local communities living there and ensuring that those local communities are sustainably using the resources of the biodiversity there, for example, fruits, woods, etc. Sustainable manner, meaning not harming the ecological setup, and earning their livelihoods in the form of these settlements. These local communities, they are allowed to use the pasture land, to use that particular transition area as pasture land, allowed to farm, meaning can do agriculture there as well. But the agriculture should be sustainable, it should not harm the ecological structure. And they can also conduct business activities. The local settlements, they can, for example, these are the local settlements in the area, they can conduct various activities there, they are allowed, they can conduct various activities along with agriculture, local businesses, etc. For example, if you talk about that which kind of business they can do there in the transition area of a biosphere reserve, so they can provide home stay facilities to the eco tourists visiting the particular biosphere reserve. So these local communities these local communities these local communities, they can provide homestay facility to the eco tourists visiting the particular biosphere reserve for tourism. So thus we see that the local communities, they are also getting their employment because of the biosphere reserve, because they are also making various products using the resources of the biosphere reserve. We see that various products they keep on making, handicraft products, using the handicraft products. Sometimes we see different types of medicines like soa rigpa. It is also one of the kind of healing techniques which is using the biological resources, and that's how it is being just done by the local communities. So for example, soa rigpa is the best example for that. Soa rigpa, we see especially in Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve, which was recently in news and designated as a UNESCO recognized biosphere reserve in India. So we see the Sowa Rigpa, which is a traditional healing technique, uses the natural resources of the biodiversity and thus treated to the people and gets earning in return. So that's how we see the local communities, they are using the resources and the entire setup of biosphere reserve, it is managed by the state so that the local communities are getting sustainably benefited from the resources of the particular biosphere reserve. We are not alienating the locals, the local communities. We are not alienating. We are just stopping and preserving the core area here from the outer interference. But the local communities can live there in the transition area, can use the resources there, can also use some of the resources in the buffer zone like fruits, etc. And that's how we see that they can have the sustainable development there. So this is about the structure of the biosphere reserve. Now transiting to our next section of discussion, that is very obvious, that is who declares a biosphere reserve. That is who declares. Okay, we talked about biosphere reserve and everything. Now the question arises that if there is a biosphere reserve in a country, for example, in India, so who declares that particular site to be a biosphere reserve? So let's see. Come on, let us see. So if we talk about that, who declares a particular site to be a biosphere reserve, specifically if we talk about in India, then on the proposal of the state government on the proposal, the state proposes to the central government, central government on the proposal of the state government, the central government declares the particular site to be a biosphere reserve, So that's how we see the biosphere reserve is declared in India. Here, the state, why there is the role of the state? Why only state says the central government to declare a particular site in its state to be a biosphere reserve? Because because as we have seen while we were discussing that, what is a biosphere reserve? It is area of land. So that's how we see, since biosphere reserve involves land area, and land, as my friends, you know, that is the subject of state list of subjects under our constitution. State list of subjects. Meaning land is state subject under our constitution, under our constitutional scheme of division of subjects. So since land is state subject, that's why we see that state here has the primary role in the declaration of the particular site to be a biosphere reserve. It proposes the central government to declare that particular site to be a biosphere reserve. Okay. Now, coming to the next development, if that particular site is declared by the government of India to be a biosphere reserve, then later on, the government of India can also nominate that site for the recognition of the UNESCO. वो यूनेस्को के रिकॉग्निशन के लिए भी उसे भेज सकते हैं, यानी नॉमिनेट कर सकते हैं दैट साइट को कि ये साइट हमारी है बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व की, एंड इसे आप रिकॉग्नाइज कर सकते हो, इसे आप जो हमारे आपकी लिस्ट है वर्ल्ड नेटवर्क ऑफ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व, यू कैन इंक्लूड दैट साइट इन द वर्ल्ड नेटवर्क ऑफ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स. That's what the next development, that's how the next development takes place. After the site is recognized by the country, then it could be further sent further nominated for the UNESCO's recognition. Okay. So this is about that who declares in India. But if we just talk about practical approach, because this is ideal setup, but practically we see that there is a committee in the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change known as Indian MAB Committee. Indian MAB Committee. Indian MAB committee. Indian MAB committee. And MAB means man and biosphere. Man and biosphere. As I told you, the Biosphere Reserve is a complete setup which takes care both the biodiversity and the local communities. That's why this name is Man and Biosphere. So this Indian committee, practically speaking, the practical approach, this first of all identifies the probable sites, meaning deserving candidates, deserving sites. First of all, in entire country, its work is to identify the probable sites which are better candidates to become the biosphere reserve. And after this MAB recognizes, identifies particular sites that they could be a biosphere reserve, then after MAB just recommends the government of that state. Then after this MAB we see that it just recognizes the potential sites, and then after it suggests the state government, it suggests that this could be a particular kind of site which is a good candidate to become a biosphere reserve. So you can now just send it to the central government for their approval. यानी अब आप इसे सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के पास भेज के और अप्रूवल ले सकते हो, यानी नोटिफाई करवा सकते हो थ्रू द नोटिफिकेशन. दैट्स व्हाई दे आर कॉल्ड नोटिफाइड साइट्स. And that's how we see a biosphere reserve is declared. Okay, how does this MAB identify? How does this MAB identify the probable sites? वो कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करता है कौन सी साइट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व बन सकती है, और स्टेट को चलो सजेस्ट करते हैं. So it identifies the sites on the basis of certain criteria. क्राइटेरिया एक है, उसके आधार पर ये उन साइट्स को आइडेंटिफाई करके तब स्टेट्स को सजेस्ट करता है कि अब आप इसे सेंट्रल अप्रूवल के लिए आप भेज सकते हो. क्राइटेरिया इंक्लूड्स दैट पर्टिकुलर साइट should be large enough. Why? Because as we have seen, a biosphere reserve is completely structured phenomena. It has 3 layers of structures: core zone, buffer zone, transition zone. So to accommodate all those zones, the particular site, the particular candidate must be large enough zones to accommodate the zonation of the biosphere reserve. And it should have all trophic levels, meaning complete food chain existing there. So since all trophic levels should exist there, all trophic levels should exist there, that's why the site first of all must be large enough. All trophic levels meaning all levels of the food chain. ऐसा नहीं कि वहां पर एक ही फूड चेन एग्जिस्ट कर रही है और अपनी रिक्वायरमेंट के लिए उसे बाहर कहीं से सपोर्ट लेना पड़ रहा है. Meaning all the food chains are existing in that particular area. So that's why the area should be large enough. Now the second criteria is that area should be rich in biodiversity. It should be rich in biodiversity, because we are here also talking about the conservation of biodiversity. So that's why the area must be rich in biodiversity. And rich in biodiversity meaning the populations of all trophic levels along with the plants, entire kind of ecosystem. And the next criteria, that is undisturbed core area. Because as we have seen that the core area is given the highest protection. That's why the core area of that probable site or that probable candidate should be undisturbed from the human kind of disturbance or human intervention. There should not be any kind of human intervention in the core region of that particular probable site, which is being identified as a good candidate to become a biosphere reserve by MAB Committee of India. Okay, so it should be undisturbed, it should have undisturbed core area. This was the next criteria. Now, the particular site, it it supports the particular site that supports traditional lifestyles, traditional lifestyles of local communities living there. Because as we have talked many times, this entire network of biosphere reserve, it is not just only focused over the protection and conservation of biodiversity, it also cares, along with that, it also cares about the local communities living there, that they are also getting natural resources for their use for their sustainable development. So that particular side, should be supportive, for example providing natural resources to the local communities living there. If any particular site that is meeting these criteria along with some other kind of incidental criteria, if any site is meeting such criteria, then we see my friends, that Indian MAB committee, it identifies that site to be a probable candidate, and then after it suggests the state government that now, because land is the subject of state, so only you can initiate the process. Now you can propose the central government that particular site for the further development, meaning the central government is declaring through the notification, if considering that particular site to be kind of good enough to be declared for the biosphere reserve, so the central government declares that site finally through a notification to be the biosphere reserve. Okay, now in the entire process we find out that state's role, once the central government declares a site to be a biosphere reserve, then the management of that particular site, meaning management of that particular state, that lies with the state. वो state को ही करना होता है, because as I told you, the land is state subject. So in the entire process we see that the role of the state is like proposer, meaning it proposes the site to the central government for to be declared like a biosphere reserve. So state's role is like a proposer, and then after we see implementer, because as we have seen, once the site is declared to be a biosphere reserve, its implementation and management falls under the rights of the particular state. वो उसके स्टेट के अधिकार क्षेत्र में होता है कि वो कैसे उस साइट को मैनेज कर रहा है, कैसे उस बायोस्फीयर प्रोग्राम को वहां पर इंप्लीमेंट कर रहा है. सो स्टेट्स रोल हियर इज kind of limited to the proposer and implementer kind of categories, meaning state is proposer as well as implementer if in between, once the site is recognized, meaning if the site is recognized to be a biosphere reserve. Now center's role, meaning what is the role of the central government in the entire process. As we have seen, center's primary role is designator, because it designates the particular site as proposed by the state government to be a particular biosphere reserve. So its role is two-faceted again, designator and funder, fund provider, because once the site is declared to be a biosphere reserve, it means that for the management of that site, that particular state government would have been provided the particular funding from the central government. अगर वो साइट डिक्लेयर हो चुकी है, now the state government just would get the funding from the central government for the implementation of the biosphere program and the management of that particular site, that is biosphere reserve. Now, so state's role is two-faceted, proposer, implementer, And center's role is primarily two-faceted: designator and fund provider. Center's one another role, additional role, is nominator of that site for the recognition of the UNESCO. सेंटर एक और रोल प्ले करता है कि बाद में once the particular site has been declared as a biosphere reserve by the central government, now later on the central government, if it thinks so that particular site also is a suitable site for UNESCO's recognition, then it can send that particular site for the UNESCO's recognition as well, and can be a UNESCO recognized site, as we see in the current development here that UNESCO recently recognized our Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve because it was nominated. It was nominated by Government of India for that designation. So that's why we see that UNESCO recognized. So these are the roles of state as well as central government. And you can ask that how UNESCO recognizes that particular biosphere reserve to be the part of its own list of World Network of Biosphere Reserves. Criteria that is almost same as we have discussed at the national level. Criteria almost same. UNESCO a little more focuses over the research and education purpose of that particular site. If any country is proposing their own biosphere reserve for UNESCO's recognition, then along with the other criteria, UNESCO stresses over the use of that particular area for the research and education purpose. That if that particular biosphere reserve could be used for the research and education or not. So that's how we see the criteria, they are almost same, but UNESCO a little more stresses over the research and education and the coexistence of the local communities living there in the transition zone of that particular biosphere reserve. Okay. This is how a particular site is declared to be a biosphere reserve and nominated for the UNESCO's recognition. Now the next obvious question, my friends, that pops in our minds, that why? Meaning, why, first of all, a state? Why a state in India? Why a state government in India that would want a site to be declared by the central government as a biosphere reserve? कोई स्टेट क्यों चाहेगा कि particular site? Because initiator, the role of initiator is played by the state. So why any state would initiate the proceeding, the process of a particular site to be declared as a biosphere reserve by the central government? Why? The reason is, my friends, funding. That's more important, Babu Bhaiya. Funding is very important. So that's why we see the first major thing is funding. As we have seen, the center's role that center's role is also one of the roles, that is fund provider. So if the site is declared in the particular state to be a biosphere reserve, it means the particular state government will get funding from the central funds to manage and implement that particular biosphere program, meaning to manage that particular biosphere reserve. So funding. Then after, the second important thing is tourism, because as we have discussed that our particular site, that is a biosphere reserve, it also includes tourism, ecotourism. It also boosts the tourism. So once the tourism is getting the momentum, the boost in the state, so it will flourish the employment. It will generate employment. ये एम्प्लॉयमेंट क्रिएट करेगा. अब कौन स्टेट गवर्नमेंट नहीं चाहती उसके राज्य में एम्प्लॉयमेंट क्रिएट हो, क्योंकि उससे उसकी गुडविल बढ़ेगी. एंड एम्प्लॉयमेंट इन द फॉर्म्स ऑफ वेरियस थिंग्स, फॉर एग्जांपल प्रोवाइडिंग होम स्टेज टू द इको टूरिस्ट्स. होम स्टे लोग प्रोवाइड करते हैं, सराउंडिंग होटल्स इन नियर बाय सिटीज, उनमें लोग आएंगे रुकेंगे. वेरियस टाइप्स ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट एक्टिविटीज दे जनरेट बिकॉज ऑफ द tourism, and that's why state governments, they always want a particular site in their state to be recognized by the central government as a biosphere reserve. The next important thing is prestige and development of local communities, यानी जो वहां पर लोकल्स रह रहे हैं उनका भी डेवलपमेंट होगा, बिकॉज दिस इंटायर प्रोग्राम बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व इट टेक्स केयर ऑफ द लोकल्स एज वेल, ये लोकल की भी केयर करता है, दैट दे आर सस्टेनेबली गेटिंग रिसोर्सेज, यूजिंग रिसोर्सेज फ्रॉम दैट पर्टिकुलर बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व। एंड कोई स्टेट गवर्नमेंट क्यों नहीं चाहेगी कि उसके स्टेट के लोग उनका डेवलपमेंट हो, क्योंकि इससे जो गवर्नमेंट की गुडविल बढ़ती है अगेन। So why the state government wants? Now, why the country of India wants a particular biosphere reserve to be recognized by the UNESCO? इंडिया आखिर क्यों चाहेगा कि उसका कोई बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व है उसको यूनेस्को रिकॉग्नाइज कर दे, जैसा कि वी हैव सीन द कोल्ड डेजर्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व एंड prior to that as well we were having already 12 UNESCO recognized biosphere reserves. This is the cold desert which is 13th UNESCO recognized biosphere reserve in India. So why any country like India or any other country would want that their biosphere reserves are recognized by UNESCO? Again, the reasons are almost same, like international funding. Here the question is international funding. It attracts international funding, international cooperation in the research and education in that particular biosphere reserve. As we have seen, the biosphere reserve is specifically talking about the buffer zone used primarily for the research purpose and research in ecology, biodiversity, soil, various things, very researches are being conducted. So we get international cooperation. Until our biosphere reserve is our own biosphere reserve, not recognized by the UNESCO, we have researches there, but those researches are primarily led by the country, conducted by the country itself. But when it is recognized by the UNESCO, we can attract international cooperation, international institutes to conduct research in that particular region and find out new findings. Okay. International funding, international cooperation in research, and international image. That we are kind of a very sustainable, ecologically diverse country. We have so many biosphere reserves. Like we see that Spain in the world, all around the world, Spain has the largest number of UNESCO recognized biosphere reserves in its country. So there is the development of the image of that particular country, that oh शाबाश आपके यहाँ सबसे ज्यादा बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व है जिनको यूनेस्को ने रिकॉग्नाइज किया है. So it builds the image, international image of that particular country as well. Now, what is the purpose of the biosphere reserve program at all? What is the purpose? I mean, why do we just have a biosphere reserve at all? What is the purpose? The next obvious question is that what is the purpose? The purpose of a biosphere reserve, the purpose of a biosphere reserve is multifaceted. कई सारे पर्पसेस हैं. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, इन सीटू कंजर्वेशन ऑफ बायोडाइवर्सिटी. In situ conservation of biodiversity meaning conserving the biodiversity in their natural local environment, not shifting them like being shifted in the zoo. In the case of a zoo, जैसे एक चिड़ियाघर होता है उसमें हम बहुत सारी जो एनिमल्स हैं, बर्ड्स हैं, उनको बाहर से लाके वहां पर शिफ्ट कर देते हैं. दैट इज एक्स सीटू. बट हियर वी आर फोकसिंग ओवर in situ conservation of biodiversity. That's how we see that the core region of the biosphere reserve, it is protected. It gets the highest level of protection so that we are ensuring the in situ conservation of the biodiversity existing there in a biosphere reserve. The next important purpose is to conduct research, as we have told, research in various like plant research, soil research, research in ecology and education. So we get these two benefits as well. For example, we get to know about the biodiversity, how the people and the natural kind of resources, natural we say biodiversity, they can exist together in sync like in a symbiotic process. So we keep on having research over various aspects of the ecology, the relation of ecology with the local communities, how they can coexist. So we can have various types of researches and educational uses as well of the biosphere reserve. Talking about the next purpose is sustainable interaction. Sustainable interaction. Sustainable interaction between the local communities, and 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 the nature meaning plants, animals there in the biosphere reserve. So how the local communities, they are just sustainably interacting, meaning without harming the ecology, without harming the natural environment there, they are sustainably interacting and getting benefited from each other. We see that local communities, they can collect fruits from the biodiversity of that region, meaning the particular site, that is biosphere reserve. They can collect fruits, they can use जो छोटी छोटी लकड़ियां होती हैं उनसे बहुत सारे ये ऐसे प्रोडक्ट्स बना देते हैं. हम देखते हैं बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट्स शहरों में बिका करते हैं. They are many times they are made by the locals living there in the transition zone of the biosphere reserve. बहुत सारी बार ये यहीं से आते हैं because they get resources, those resources from the particular biosphere reserve without harming the natural ecosystem, because this is a sustainable approach, sustainable interaction between the locals and the nature. So that's why we see that we just talk about the biosphere reserve. We are so much concerned about the biosphere reserve and we want the biosphere reserve to exist. That's what the purpose. The next obvious question that comes in our mind, okay, we have a biosphere reserve, declared biosphere reserve, everything. What is the provision in the kind of, is there any provision? Is there any provision which guides the declaration as well as the management of a biosphere reserve? क्या कोई इंडिया में ऐसा प्रोविजन है, कोई एक्ट है, कोई लेजिस्लेशन है ऐसा जो ये पूरा प्रोसेस गाइड कर रहा हो कि कैसे हम बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व को डिक्लेयर करें, कैसे हम उसे प्रोटेक्ट करें, मैनेज करें? इज देयर एनी काइंड ऑफ फॉर्मल प्रोविजन? आंसर इज no any act or any legislation. कोई एक्ट या लेजिस्लेशन अभी तक इंडिया में ऐसा नहीं है एज ऑफ नाउ that guides the declaration as well as the management of the biosphere reserve. So don't get confused, because many times you will hear that people are talking that a biosphere reserve is declared in India under the provisions of Environment Protection Act, some would say, and some would say under the provision of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. But there is a big no for those arguments, because a biosphere reserve, it is not declared and managed under any specific act or the legislation of the parliament or any state. ये कोई legislation या act के अंतर्गत बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व को मैनेज नहीं किया जा रहा. Then how it is managed? कैसे किया जा रहा भैया? अगर कोई एक्ट भी नहीं, लेजिस्लेशन भी नहीं, तो कैसे किया जा रहा? It is completely an administrative process. ये भैया एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव प्रोसेस है अंडर विच वी डिक्लेयर and manage the biosphere reserve, meaning declared by the central government, managed by the state government. Okay, so this is a kind of administrative process. Under the administrative process, we see that the entire process that takes place, entire procedure from declaration to the management, from funding to everything, that takes place. But as we have discussed that a biosphere reserve, it is divided in 3 zones: core zone, buffer zone, transition zone. If the core zone, if the core zone if the core zone of that biosphere reserve, as we have discussed, it can also include national park in it, contain the national park, wildlife sanctuaries in it. अगर core zone में wildlife sanctuary, national park, as we see the recently declared biosphere reserve, recently recognized biosphere reserve by UNESCO, that is Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve, it has Kibber Wildlife Sanctuary in the core zone. It also has Pin Valley National Park in its core zone. Then those particular designations in the core zone of the biosphere reserve, like National Park, Wildlife Sanctuary, they are declared and managed. Remember, declared and managed by respective states. Those designations, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, they are declared and managed both by the particular state, not the center, by the particular state. Under there is the provision as well for them, that is Wildlife Protection Act 1972, my friends. This is the difference here. Remember, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, if they are there, if they are falling in the core region of that biosphere reserve, any particular biosphere reserve, as for example we can see the Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve, its core zone contains Khyber Wildlife Sanctuary, Pin Valley National Park. So those designations, meaning national park and wildlife sanctuaries, they are declared and managed by the particular state under Wildlife Protection Act 1972. But biosphere reserve at all, as a whole structure, it is not declared and managed under any specific legislation or act of parliament. And the biosphere reserve, it has different procedure. It is suggested by the state government. It is just proposed by the state government to be declared by the central government to be a biosphere reserve. And then the fund is provided by the central government to the state government for the management of that particular biosphere reserve. So there is a big difference here. They can trick you in the exam by just putting those aspects in the question. So that's why I thought to discuss this as well before you, my friends. The next obvious question that comes in our mind, that as we have seen, if talking about the recent development, that is the recognition of UNESCO, because that's why we are talking about this topic as well. So if we are coming over the current development of the particular topic, then there is a word, there is a term we used, that is the recognition of UNESCO. So what the hell this is, my friends? ये क्या है आखिर? यूनेस्को क्या है? ये क्या है? ये कौन होता है रिकॉग्नाइज करने वाला? ये कौन होता है किसी पर्टिकुलर देश के बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व को यूनेस्को रिकॉग्नाइज्ड बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व डिक्लेयर करने के लिए, या उसको डेजिग्नेट करने के लिए कि ये बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व हमने डेजिग्नेट कर दिया है फॉर आवर लिस्ट, दैट इज वर्ल्ड नेटवर्क का बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व. व्हाट द हेल? I mean, who is this UNESCO? That is guy, my friends. So talking about UNESCO in full, meaning its full form, that is United Nations, you all know. Then after educational, United Nations, educational, scientific and cultural cooperation. United Nations, educational, scientific and cultural organization. United Nations Educational, repeating again, scientific and cultural organization. So it is an organization, specialized agency. It is an specialized agency of the United Nations. ये एक यूएन की स्पेशलाइज्ड एजेंसी है, which was formed in 1945, my friends. Remember, 1945 में से establish किया गया था, and its headquarter is in Paris in France. इसका headquarter पेरिस में है फ्रांस के. तो This is a specialized agency like WHO, World Health Organization. World Health Organization is also a specialized agency of the United Nations. वो भी यूएन की एक स्पेशलाइज्ड एजेंसी है एज वी सी यूनेस्को. यूनेस्को इज ऑल्सो अ स्पेशलाइज्ड एजेंसी ऑफ यूनाइटेड नेशंस. सिमिलरली, so UNESCO specialized agency established in 1945. It is UN specialized agency. Headquarters is Paris and France, meaning Paris at France. Okay, Paris, as we know, the capital of France, so headquarters is located there. Now, what is the mandate of UNESCO? ये आखिर करना क्या चाहता है, क्यों एस्टेब्लिश किया गया, करना क्या चाहता है? The mandate is hidden here. The mandate of the UNESCO is hidden in these letters, ESC, meaning educational, scientific, cultural. Educational, scientific, cultural. So its mandate is to promote world peace, to promote world peace, world peace, to promote world peace, my friends, world peace by promoting educational, scientific, cultural cooperation and a cooperation through communication as well. Through it tries to promote world peace through cultural cooperation, scientific cooperation, educational cooperation, cooperation in communication among different countries in the world at the global level. तो बहुत सारे देशों के बीच में ये cooperation बढ़ाता है, educational, scientific, cultural and communication as well. Remember, communication is also included here. Talking about education, meaning cooperation in education sector, cooperation in science, cooperation in culture and cooperation in communication as well. This could be the part of question that UNESCO promotes cooperation in which of the following fields. पूछ सकता है. So education, science, culture and communication, these are 4 areas of cooperation that are the mandate under the UNESCO. Okay. Now we understood its mandate, but how does it just communicate and cooperate? For example, we see it recognizes World Heritage Sites. As we see, it recognizes World Heritage Sites. ये वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट्स को रिकॉग्नाइज करता है. यूनेस्को रिकॉग्नाइज्ड वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट्स. The last one in India, which is the UNESCO recognized World Heritage Site, that is Maratha Military Landscape. Maratha Military Landscape, that was recognized by the UNESCO as a World Heritage Site in India in July 2025. July 2025. So it recognizes World Heritage Sites. World Heritage Sites, and it also recognizes biosphere reserves, as we are discussing it now. As we have seen, the last recognized biosphere reserve in India is a recent one, COLD Desert Biosphere Reserve, situated in Himachal Pradesh. So UNESCO just increases the cooperation in cultural sector through the recognition of World Heritage Sites, biosphere reserves. So through these mechanisms, it tries to promote the world peace through the education, science, culture and communication. Okay. Now the next important thing is, what about India? meaning relationship between India and UNESCO. So my friends, India is the founding member. India is the founding member of the UNESCO. Founding member hai. Now the obvious question in your minds could be that since UNESCO was established in 1945, then India was not free. It was the colony of the British. That's right, my friend. Because India became the member of UNESCO during its colonial period in 1945 and is the member of UNESCO since ever. तब से ही वो यूनेस्को का मेंबर है. Okay. Now, the next important thing that obviously comes in our mind, because we are here talking about the current development, that what is the MAB program? The MAB program of the UNESCO. MAB प्रोग्राम ऑफ द यूनेस्को. आखिर यूनेस्को का MAB प्रोग्राम क्या है, जिसके तहत हम सुन रहे हैं कि हमारी जो रिसेंट साइट है कोल्ड डेजर्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व वो रिकॉग्नाइज की गई है. तो MAB प्रोग्राम क्या है यूनेस्को का? If talking about MAB program, meaning man and biosphere, because I told you many times, man and biosphere. The biosphere reserve is not just for the protection of biodiversity, it is also for the local communities to use the resources of the biodiversity in a sustainable manner for their betterment and development. Okay. So MAB program, it is a program under the UNESCO, launched by UNESCO. This is a program launched by UNESCO in 1971. ये 1971 में यूनेस्को द्वारा लॉन्च किया गया था MAB प्रोग्राम, मैन एंड बायोस्फीयर प्रोग्राम ऑफ यूनेस्को. ओके. व्हाट इज इट्स मैंडेट? I mean, what is its work? ये करना क्या चाहता है MAB program? It tries to improve conservation, meaning as we have discussed, conservation of biodiversity, protection and conservation, protect करना, conserve करना, conservation of biodiversity, my friends. Biodiversity, ये बायोडाइवर्सिटी को प्रोटेक्ट और कंजर्व करना चाह रहा है along with conservation of biodiversity and sustainable development of locals. Sustainable development of locals, of local communities living there. जो लोकल कम्युनिटीज वहां रह रही हैं उनका सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट भी इंश्योर हो और हमारी बायोडाइवर्सिटी भी कंजर्व हो और ये दोनों आपस में इंटरेक्ट करें इन अ सस्टेनेबल मैनर, नॉट हार्मिंग ईच अदर. ऐसा नहीं कि जो लोकल कम्युनिटी है वहां सारे पेड़ों को काट डाले या एनिमल्स की हंटिंग शुरू कर दे. दिस कैन नॉट बी अलाउड बिकॉज इट टॉक्स अबाउट द सस्टेनेबल अप्रोच. जो लोकल कम्युनिटी है फ्रूट्स ले सकती है, बहुत सारे वहाँ पर ऐसी लकड़ी जो गिर जाती है जंगलों में या फॉरेस्ट अगर वहाँ पर है तो वो लकड़ियाँ ले सकती है, अदर प्रोडक्ट्स वहाँ से यूज कर सकते हैं, होम स्टेज बना सकते हैं, एग्रीकल्चर, ग्रेजिंग लैंड, वेरियस टाइप्स ऑफ यूजेस देयर कैन बी डन बाय द लोकल कम्युनिटीज लिविंग देयर इन द विसिनिटी ऑफ द forest reserve or the buffer zone, meaning in transition zone. So it tries to improve the relationship between the biodiversity and the local communities. So that's what the purpose of MAB. With the relationship, improving relationship between the biodiversity and the local communities living there. Okay. The next important thing about MAB program that it maintains a list that is known as World Network of Biosphere Reserves. World Network of Biosphere Reserves. So there is a list known as WNBR. So it is maintained under MAB program. MAB program के अंतर्गत ही that list maintain की जा रही है World Network of Biosphere Reserves. And when we talk about World Network of Biosphere Reserves, it means that it includes the UNESCO recognized biosphere reserves ऑल अराउंड द वर्ल्ड, यानी वर्ल्ड में जितने भी यूनेस्को रिकॉग्नाइज्ड बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स हैं, दे आर नोन एज द पार्ट ऑफ WNBR, वर्ल्ड नेटवर्क ऑफ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स. Okay, and how? I mean, how the MAB program, it just includes any particular biosphere reserve of the country to be the part of world network of biosphere reserve. So, on the proposal, on the proposal, on the proposal of that particular country, यानी वो जो देश है पहले प्रपोजल भेजेगा यूनेस्को को कि हमारा ये बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व है, डिजर्विंग है, आप इसको कंसीडर करिए अपने WNBR में इंक्लूड करने के लिए. तो द प्रपोजल इज सेंट बाय द कंट्री, मीनिंग इनिशिएटेड बाय द कंट्री. सो जब कंट्री को प्रपोजल भेजता है तो MAB प्रोग्राम के जो अंतर्गत जो WNBR लिस्ट मेंटेन हो रही है, देन दे कैन इंक्लूड दैट पर्टिकुलर बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व to be the part of world network of biosphere reserves. So that's how the development takes place. Now when a designation takes place, what are the benefits of this designation to the particular country? जो देश है उसको क्या benefit हो रहे हैं? As we have already discussed that the benefits to that particular country from where the biosphere reserve is belonging, benefits are like attracts research partnerships, as we have discussed, international research partnerships, attracts ecotourism, and then after employment out of that, and international funding, global ranking, global prestige, various types of advantages, international cooperation, they are associated, that a country remains always kind of eager to just to declare its to propose this biosphere reserve to be declared by UNESCO to be the part of WNBR. So always a country remains eager. So this is about the MAB program, Man and Biosphere program. What recently happened? That the topic of biosphere reserve came into news. So what recently happened? अभी हुआ क्या ऐसा? What recently happened? What recently happened? What recently happened? That the particular kind of topic, biosphere reserve, that came into limelight. वो इतना news में आ गया all over the world. Okay, now on 27th of September, 2025, on that date, during 37th session, 37th meeting, 37th session of ICC. अब ये क्या नया है? ICC क्या नया आ गया? What is this? What is ICC? What the hell this is? ये क्या है? ICC, it implies for International Coordination Council of International Coordination Council of UNESCO under MAB program. So this International Coordinating Council, my friends, this International Coordinating Council, ICC, it in its 37th session that took place at Hangzhou in China. चाइना में जो अभी हुआ इन सितंबर, ऑन 27th of September जो डेवलपमेंट हुआ, उसमें क्या किया गया? दिस आईसीसी ऑफ MAB प्रोग्राम, मीनिंग इंटरनेशनल कोऑर्डिनेटिंग काउंसिल ऑफ MAB प्रोग्राम ऑफ यूनेस्को, इट डेजिग्नेटेड 26 sites to be the part of its world network of biosphere reserve. 26 sites from all around the world. 26 sites ऑल अराउंड द वर्ल्ड, यानी पूरे विश्व में 26 साइट ऐसे उसने रिकॉग्नाइज की, मीनिंग 26 बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व उसने ऐसे रिकॉग्नाइज किए जिनको उसने WNBR का पार्ट बना दिया, मीनिंग नाउ दे आर यूनेस्को रिकॉग्नाइज्ड। फ्रॉम दीज 26 one biosphere reserve, my friends, was from India, and that is cold desert. That's why we are talking about this topic. Cold desert situated in Himachal Pradesh. Himachal Pradesh. So what recently happened? This entire thing recently happened at Hangzhou in China. Hangzhou is a place in China. The particular session of ICC, because ICC is the agency that decides over the designation of any site to be the part of WNBR. वो आईसीसी ही है, बिकॉज यूनेस्को इज इंटायर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, पूरा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन नहीं बैठ जाएगा एक साथ डिसाइड करने के लिए. सो अ पर्टिकुलर कमेटी हैज बीन मेड, दैट इज इंटरनेशनल कोऑर्डिनेटिंग काउंसिल, वो बना दी गई है अंडर इट्स एमएबी प्रोग्राम. जब एमएबी प्रोग्राम आया तब एक कमेटी बनाई गई फॉर द डेजिग्नेशन ऑफ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स टू बी द पार्ट ऑफ वर्ल्ड नेटवर्क ऑफ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स. यानी ये जो कमेटी है ये किसी देश के अंदर किसी साइट को बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व डिक्लेयर नहीं कर रही है. दैट पर्टिकुलर साइट इज डिक्लेयर्ड एज अ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व बाय द कंट्री इटसेल्फ. बट व्हेन कंट्री नॉमिनेट्स that particular site, that particular biosphere reserve to be included in WNBR, then this ICC comes and plays a role. Where is ICC? Then this ICC kicks in and plays the role. For example, it considers all those criteria as we have already discussed, and then after, if it finds that the particular site is suitable to be declared UNESCO recognized, then it recognizes that particular site, and that site becomes the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve as maintained by UNESCO. There is a list. Now what is that particular World Network of Biosphere Reserve? Okay, we discussed that it includes the UNESCO recognized biosphere reserves all around the world. UNESCO recognized biosphere reserves, meaning UNESCO recognized sites all over the world. So currently, as of now, after the current development that took place, as of now, this World Network of Biosphere Reserve, which is a list of UNESCO recognized biosphere reserves all around the world, my friends, we see that this now, after the current development, it includes 785 sites from all around the world. इसमें 785 साइट्स अब टोटल हो चुकी हैं फ्रॉम अक्रॉस 142 कंट्रीज, यानी 142 देशों की 785 साइट्स इस वर्ल्ड नेटवर्क ऑफ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व का अब पार्ट बन चुकी हैं. Now in 142 countries, if we talk about the largest number of sites, then we see the Spain comes at first place with 55 UNESCO recognized sites. Maybe the biosphere reserves in Spain, they are more than that, but we are talking about UNESCO recognized, meaning part of WNBR. Then Spain comes at first place. Then after we see USA, that is second place, comes over second place with 47 UNESCO recognized sites. And if we see China, so China, it has 34 UNESCO recognized sites. They are largest in Asian continent. हमारा जो एशिया कॉन्टिनेंट है उसमें सबसे ज्यादा यूनेस्को रिकॉग्नाइज्ड साइट्स चाइना में ही है. They are 34. So this is all about the sites. Now let's see what is there in India. इंडिया में कौन कौन साइट्स हैं, कितनी टोटल साइट्स हैं. So while talking about India, we see that there are various sites in India as well. Yeah, coming over this list, these are the biosphere reserves. Those are situated in India. Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. This was the first biosphere reserve recognized, established in India. not recognized by the UNESCO, I mean say, we are talking about that was established in India, the first biosphere reserve. It was established in 1986 in India. It is first biosphere reserve in India. It is situated over the tri-junction, that is Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka. Karnataka, tri-junction. And this Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve is also a UNESCO recognized, meaning part of WNBR, WNBR, World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Then second one is Nanda Devi. It was established in 1988 in India. It is in UK. It is also the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve, meaning UNESCO recognized. Then third one, Nokrek, that was established in 1988, situated in Meghalaya. It is also the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Then after we see Gulf of Mannar Biosphere Reserve, it was established in 1989. It is first marine biosphere reserve in South Asia. पूरी साउथ एशिया में पहला मरीन बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व है, बिकॉज दिस गल्फ ऑफ मन्नार बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व, इट इज लोकेटेड प्राइमरीली इन गल्फ ऑफ मन्नार इन इंडियन ओशन, and it is popular for dugong, a sea cow which is vulnerable. Okay, and this is also the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserves. Then coming over fifth, Sundarbans. It was established in 1989. It is in West Bengal, and it is popular. It is very popular for holiday wildlife sanctuary, meaning very popular holiday wildlife sanctuary that is situated in Sundarbans, and it is also the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserves. Then after coming about over Manas, it was established in 1989, situated in Assam, popular for golden langur which is endangered. Endangered golden langur is found here, and it is not the part of WNBR of UNESCO, remember. Then after Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve, it was established in 1989, and it is located over the southernmost island of the chain of islands in Andaman and Nicobar, because Great Nicobar is the southernmost island in the chain of entire islands of Andaman and Nicobar, southernmost island. And it is also popular for Sompen tribes. Sompen tribes, they are found in Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve. And this Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve is also the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserves. Then after coming over eighth one, that is Simlipal. Simlipal Biosphere Reserve, established in 1994, situated in Odisha, and the name Simlipal is coming because of Semul trees are found here. Semul trees, they are cotton silk trees, silk trees. They are found here. That's why the name Simlipal, and this Simlipal Biosphere Reserve is also the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserves. Then after coming to the ninth one, that is Dibru-Saikhowa Biosphere Reserve. It was established in 1997. It is there in Assam. It is not the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve, not the part of. Okay. Then after coming to 10th one, that is Dehang Dibang Biosphere Reserve. It was established in 1998. It is there in Arunachal Pradesh, because the name Dehang Dibang, these are two rivers there in Arunachal Pradesh, tributaries of the Brahmaputra river. So that's why the name. This Dehang Dibang Biosphere Reserve is also not the part of WNBR, not the part of UNESCO. Then after coming to 11th one, that is Panchmari Biosphere Reserve, established in 1999, situated in MP. It is the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve, meaning Pachmari Biosphere Reserve. Then after Kanchenjunga Biosphere Reserve, established in 2000 in India, located in Sikkim. It is the highest altitude biosphere reserve in India as well, and it is the first mixed World Heritage Site as recognized by UNESCO. ये World Heritage Site भी है, UNESCO द्वारा recognize की गई, ध्यान रखना. Here we are talking about biosphere reserves, Kanchenjunga Biosphere Reserve, but Kanchenjunga is also first mixed World Heritage Site, meaning cultural as well as natural. Both aspects are there in Kanchenjunga. So it has also been recognized by UNESCO as a mixed World Heritage Site, and is first mixed heritage site in India, and it is the highest altitude biosphere reserve as well as cultural site in India, meaning recognized by UNESCO. Then after Then after coming, the next one, Agastya Malai Biosphere Reserve, established in 2001, located along the border of Kerala and Tamil Nadu. It is the southernmost biosphere reserve in India. Remember, southernmost biosphere reserve in India. Then after coming to the 14th one, this is also part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Then after coming to the 14th one, that is Achan Kamar Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve, established in 2005. It is located in MP Chhattisgarh region. It is the watershed between the east flowing river and west flowing river, meaning rivers falling in the Bay of Bengal and rivers falling in the Arabian Sea. So this Achan Kamar Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve, it is also the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Then after the next one, Great Run of Kutch Biosphere Reserve, it was established in 2008. It is salt desert because salt is found here on the place of the sand. But since the evaporation exceeds the precipitation, यानी evaporation ज़्यादा हो रहा है, बारिश कम हो रही है, that's why this Great Run Kutch is also salt desert, and it is the largest biosphere reserve in India. And this is not the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserves. The next one is Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve, that is 16th one. That Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve, we are talking this entire topic because of this. This is recognized recently in September by the UNESCO, Cold Desert Biosphere Reserve. It was established as a biosphere reserve in India in 2009, located in Himachal Pradesh, in Trans-Himalayan region, meaning outest part of Himalaya. And it also includes Spin Valley National Park and Kibar Wildlife Sanctuaries in its core region. Then after 17th, that is Sesachalam Biosphere Reserve. It was established in 2010 in Andhra Pradesh. It is popular for red sandals, meaning plants of trees of red sandalwood. And then after the 18th, that is also the part of World Network of Biosphere Reserve, that is Panna Biosphere Reserve. It was established in 2011 in MP. That's how we see that there are total 18 biosphere reserves in India, in which 13 biosphere reserves are the part of WNBR, meaning World Network of Biosphere Reserve, as a list maintained by India. So this was a complete holistic development associating the static portion with the current development about a very crucial topic of environment and ecology, that is Biosphere Reserve. I hope you enjoyed, my friends. That's all for today's discussion. Meeting you in a next lecture tomorrow with our new discussion. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for joining in.